Hey guys, welcome back to another Shadowlands Mythic Plus commentary video. This time we have a Mists of Tirna Scithe 19 for you. So, sit back and enjoy. Hopefully you can learn something. So, as you can see, again, we're running a rogue here instead of a second fire mage. On this push week that we were doing, it's just super hard for us to do any keys above 18 with two fire mages and a shadow priest. It's just that our damage profiles don't work very well with each other, and at those higher keys you are kind of forced to run more meta comps, which is kind of annoying because we would like to play what we like to play, right? But instead we're kind of forced into playing stuff that's, particularly good for the content. So right here, we're pulling the Spike Claw pack. We want to stay loosely stacked, so we want to be close enough that these guys don't jump very far, so that we can keep flame strike damage on them and everything. But we want to be far enough away from each other that that when they jump on somebody, it doesn't cleave other people. So this pack is kind of rough on high fortified keys like this. It's pretty hard. So I get 2 stacks of the dot right there. I Shadowman myself and I pop Dispersion. I barely survive. We barely live right there. So this pull is going to be our Lust. So I pop my Power Infusion on the Fire Mage. I'm running the Power Infusion Legendary. So I Power Infuse the Fire Mage. And then, I pop all my cooldowns right here. So this Overgrowth, I hit it with a Void Bolt and it one-shots it, which is nice. And then, we're trying to kill these guys evenly. You have to be careful because when the villager dies, it'll cast basically a druid's tranquility, and that will heal all of your party, but it will also heal the mobs. So you want to be kind of careful. The villager does need to die pretty quickly. These soul cleavers are really deadly too, though. So basically everything needs to die at the same time if you can help it. See, right here, he's casting the tranquility thing, and this soul cleaver is healing a little bit from it. So. Okay, so to skip this next pack, we're going to end cap it. We also sap it, so I guess we doubled up right there. And then I Mind Soothe both of these guys every time so that we can get the mushrooms before we go into this pull. Then I Door of Shadows right here to get further in, and then I take this mushroom in the back. And then we go into this next pull. So something to keep in mind with this pull, these Soul Cleavers are not deadly for anyone but the tank, but for the tank they are pretty deadly, so be ready for your tank to start running like crazy. But the other 2 dudes, the Harvesters, are deadly for people who aren't the tank, so you need to kick those Spirit Bolts whenever you can. And then they also cast a thing called Harvest Essence. Yeah, it's called Harvest Essence. That thing heals them, so that's also very important to kick whenever you can. So you need a lot of kicks for this dungeon, so you need to kick all those Spirit Bolts if you can, and you need to stop all of the Harvest Essences. We're focusing down this guy in the back, because these, like I said before, these Soul Cleavers are only deadly to the tank, but it's a Vengeance Demon Hunter meta, so he can just run and never get hit by these guys, which is pretty nice. So it's easier for him to kite these guys than it would be. So we focus the Harvesters down, and then we kill those Soul Cleavers. Okay, and then we're moving into these Bow Breakers. These guys, we want to focus one down so that he gets to 50%, so that he'll cast his Furious Thrashing. And then after that one starts casting Furious Thrashing, we switch to the other guy. So even though there are 2 mobs here, I'm doing pure single target to whichever one is above 50%. So he starts casting Furious Thrashing, and I move on to the next guy. So we're going to completely ignore Skull now. Just let my dots fall off, and then, we're going to focus the other one until he gets to 50%. And then they'll only cast Furious Thrashing the one time. They cast it when they hit 50% HP, so as long as they don't heal, I guess, they'll only cast it the one time. I think if they do heal over 50%, and then you damage them back down to 50%, they'll cast it again. But I'm not positive, so just try not to heal them, obviously, right? But yeah, after they've cast it the one time, they're not going to heal up for us, so we're just going to kill both simultaneously, right? You don't have to worry about single targeting anymore at that point. So, okay, so we move into this Prideful, and I should be saving my cooldowns here because this boss, it's going to be pretty important that I have my cooldowns for the burn phase of this boss. So I should not be using Void Eruption, I should not be using Shadow Fiend, and I should not be using Power Infusion. I should just hold all my cooldowns. I barely dodged that Prideful line right there, which is pretty crazy. I should put Vampiric Touch back on this guy. Okay, I do, because it fell off. But yeah, then I'm just doing, basic non-cooldown rotation. So I pop Vampiric Embrace there as we get near the end to try and keep people alive. That's part of the problem when you don't pop cooldowns, is that the Prideful takes a lot longer, and that could be really deadly. So, okay, so I have all my cooldowns ready, but I'm not going to pop them on pull, because this boss, like I said, has a burn phase. So after we call this guy the Simp Tree, the Droman Ulferin, or whatever his name is. We call him the Simp Tree. So once the Simp Tree dies, or gets down to like 20% HP, I think it is, something like that, Ingra is going to take increased damage. So we want to save all of our cooldowns for when the Simp Tree is done, so that we can, blast the main boss. Because it's the main boss's health that determines when this boss fight ends. It's not the tree, so we just have to kill the main boss. So we're going to save all our cooldowns for it. Okay, so I guess it's closer to 15% HP. Yeah, so right here I should have popped all my cooldowns probably a second before this, so that I could be in the middle of my cooldowns when he phased. But I ended up not using it for a second, and then I don't get the most value out of my Void Eruption here. So what I should have done is, once the circle marker, once the tree was getting pretty close, I should have popped my cooldowns and started getting ready to blast, so that I could be in full force when Ingra is taking more damage. But instead I ended up not popping them until a couple seconds in, and that cost us a significant amount of damage, right? So little optimizations like that are pretty important, and that's just something that I could do better. It's kind of hard to plan your cooldowns for bosses in this dungeon specifically, at least the first two bosses, because like Mistcaller, you kind of want to pop your cooldowns on pull, like before you even get your dots up. Okay, so maybe you would do Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, and then pop your cooldowns, just because your Mistcaller is going to phase, and you don't want to. You want to use your cooldowns to their full extent before Mistcaller phases, and so if you hold your cooldowns for too long on that first phase, you're not going to get the most value out of them. So right here I'm saving my Void Torrent for the boss's burn phase again, so I'll put both dots on it, and then I hit it with my Void Torrent, and then I hit it with a Shadow Crash. I could be popping my Void Eruption here. I end up doing it, which is good, because it's important that we kill this guy right now. That Shadow Word Death hits me for like a lot of damage right there, so that would have been a good time to fade, or maybe use my Desperate Prayer to keep myself alive, and we end up killing the boss. Not such a huge deal. If this key we were running 2 Fire Mages and me as a Shadow Priest, then we could have one-phased that boss potentially. Double Combust is just like crazy strong, but because we're running a rogue, we're not able to one-phase that boss, and the higher the key goes, the less likely we would be able to one-phase it. So we end up 2-phasing, but we don't want to do any more than 2 phases, or else it's just going to take way too long. So in this pack, there's a Stalker. We did pull the pack to the right as well as this pack that is in the middle. The Stalker casts that Mist Veil Bite, and that Mist Veil Bite took me almost completely dead. So that's something that you can stop. So it's not kickable, but it is stunnable. So whenever the Mist Veil Bite is targeting me, as long as there's not like Sanguine on the ground or anything, I try to stun it so that I don't take the damage, because that, as you go higher into these fortified keys, that damage is really, really, really painful, and it can't be. The only way to get rid of it would be like a Blessing of Protection from a Paladin, and that's a pretty big cooldown that you don't usually want to waste on something that's so small like that you can stop in other ways, right? So the Mist Color went to the right, which is why we pulled this room to the right already. And then in the past, you could find the first 2 rooms by watching which way the mist caller went. But these days, that doesn't work. So it works sometimes. Sometimes you get lucky. But at least from what people have told me, the mist caller is not guaranteed to show you the first 2 rooms. But she will show you the first room. So whichever way she goes at the very beginning is correct. But then after that, you used to be able to kind of game it by being like, oh, she went straight and then right? But these days that doesn't actually work. So in this pack, there's a stinger. So the things you need to be worried about in the maze are the stingers and the stalkers. And all the other stuff is not so deadly. The stinger leaves a magic debuff on people that hurts really bad. You can mass dispel that, so keep an eye on that and try to mass dispel it when you can. But also your healer can dispel it. Those spear flurries, that's something you need to be really careful about. These defenders are dangerous, but all of the stuff that they do is avoidable, so you don't have to worry too much about them. But like the stalkers, you can't not stand in the stalker's bite, right? It's just going to bite you. So the only way you can stop that would be, a stun or something. And then the stingers also have that debuff that they put on people. So, so right here I pop Power Infusion on my mage. I think we're probably going to lust this because this is a mini boss and it's going to take a while if we don't lust it. We may end up not lusting this, but I think the plan was to lust it. Yeah, it's probably too late now. This pool of radiance that the matriarch puts on the ground, anything that stands in it will get healed. So I try to stand in it whenever I can just to help with the healing, right? There's no point not standing in it. She does a frontal, so you want to make sure she doesn't hit you with the frontal, so that's a good time to step out of it, right? But if you had the option to stand in a healing pool, right, then why wouldn't you, Also keep in mind that includes the prideful. So this manifestation of pride is about to spawn. If he stands in this pool, he will get healed. So keep that in mind and make sure that your tank isn't holding him in the prideful. I mean in the pool, because as you can see right now, he was getting healed right there. So that's important that he's not standing in it. But the rest of you can. So that'll help. I mean the matriarch doesn't do much damage outside of tank damage, and the tank can't really stand in the pool without getting the matriarch in the pool. I mean, you kind of can. Maybe the tank stands on the edge of the pool and has the matriarch out of the pool, but just stand in it. I mean, why not, right? It's going to heal you, so may as well stand in it. Pop my Vampiric Embrace here, try and help with the healing. We're getting to 20 stacks on this Prideful. We're not doing a ton of damage to it, so it needs to die pretty quickly, or else we're all going to die. I'm putting in some Shadow Mends on myself. Yeah, and then we end up killing it, so I try to weave Shadow Mends in on myself like that whenever there's something really, really deadly. So we saved our lust because we were going to do this 2-pack right here. So we pull this Stalker and Stinger pack into this next pack, and then this is when we're going to lust, and the damage numbers here should get pretty crazy. So I Power Infusion our mage so that he can combust, and then yeah, I start blasting with everything, right? I pop Void Eruption, I pop Searing Nightmares. Yeah, and then our mage is doing 50k DPS, I'm doing 20k. It would be higher if we could manage to keep everything all together, but because this is such a big pack, our tank kind of has to kite or else he's going to die. So we can't really keep everything on top of each other perfectly like we would like to, but we still manage to kill it all pretty quickly. And there's a couple key kicks that are important here, like Nourish the Forest and Bramblethorn Coat or whatever. So those are important things to kick. But yeah, we managed to kill those 2 packs pretty quick, and I think that was a pretty good use of our lust. We save a lot of time doing that. So something that I wish that they would change in this dungeon is make Sanguine more easily seen, because it's Sanguine is supposed to be this dark red, right? It's supposed to look like blood, but in this dungeon in particular, it's blue. It's super hard to see. It blends in with the floor super well, and because I'm colorblind, I have a really, really hard time seeing it. I'm sure everybody has a hard time seeing it, but I mean, it's just super hard for me to see. So I wish they would change that and make it, more visible. I don't think that I think games that try to make stuff visible, I don't think there's any downside in making mechanics more visible, right? Like the sludge fist thing, that like the falling rubble on sludge fist. A lot of people were like, "Oh, just dodge it." I mean, it was like super hard to see, and if you didn't do sludge fist until more recently, you may not know this, but before the visual for the falling rubble on sludge fist was not as visible, right? It didn't leave those big things on the ground. It was like just kind of like a pulsing thing that was like barely seeable, right? And I mean, everybody had a hard time seeing it, and I don't think that making stuff invisible like that makes your game any more. It's like, why would you? I don't think making it more visible makes it less of a challenge, right? So having the sludge fist stuff be less visible is just bad game design in my opinion. So it's not like the circles get any bigger if they're less visible or anything like that. It's just it's like you're kind of forcing your players to like play around that, which I can understand, like some things being like making visibility be part of the mechanic, but for things that you're just supposed to dodge all the time, right? I don't know. This is kind of a rant at this point, but I wish things were. I wish visibility was a higher priority in games. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah, so we're fighting Mistcaller here. Those fox dudes that spawn, the freeze tag guys. If you stun them right as they come out, then they won't cast their ice thing when they hit people. So like this Vulpin is just standing on top of our tank. It's actually safe because we stopped it like right as it came out before it got its cast off. You can do that, and if you go back and watch this boss fight, sorry I was ranting the whole time, but if you go back and watch this boss fight, there are a couple times where like I'll psychic scream if it's about to spawn on me, and it'll just run away and not turn into an ice thing or whatever. Right there, it's just standing on the mage. That's because he dragon's breathed it. Yeah, so psychic scream and psychic horror both work for that. And then yeah, anything that a rogue can do. It does need to be a stun though. You need to stop the cast. You can't just like entangling roots it in place. I mean, you can entangling roots it in place and it won't run to people, but as far as making it not turn into ice when it gets to people, you have to stop the cast. So entangling roots doesn't stop the cast. So once the entangling roots falls off, it'll run and turn people to ice still. But yeah, so now we're going to jump down. For anyone who doesn't know, the acorn back there, that updates the graveyard. So you want anybody who's Night Fae should go over and click on the acorn and go through the dialogue options or whatever. I have both my cooldowns right here, and this pack is going to proc Prideful, so maybe now would be a good time to pop my cooldowns. And then, so after this first pull, we're going to do a really big double pull, which is why I'm saving my cooldowns right now. But I probably should pop my cooldowns right here so that I can have them up after the Prideful. If I had been paying more attention to the percentage and known that Prideful would be after this, and honestly, this is kind of inexcusable because our tank tells us the route every single time before we start the key. We link the route. We're like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do in this key. Plan accordingly, right? So I should know that Prideful is going to spawn right here, and that I was fine to use my cooldowns on that first pack. If I had popped them right as the pack started, then they would be up for this next mega pull that we're about to do. And I end up not doing that, which costs me some damage, and it costs my entire team some time. So that's something that I need to work on, is planning my cooldowns better. I get really worried. I have like this fear of missing out where I'm like, okay, we're about to do this really, really big pull. It's important that I have my cooldowns for it, so I'm just going to hold them, right? I've been holding my Power Infusion and my Void Eruption here for like easily 2 minutes. And that's definitely not something you want to do, right? So I could have had an entire other use of my cooldowns and still have them up for this pull, but I get so worried that I'm not going to have them for this pull that I end up just holding them for way too long. So I power infuse the Fire Mage, and then I should be popping all my cooldowns right here, and we're just going to try and, absolutely blast. I should Shadow Crash right here, because everything's stacked up really easily. There we go, I finally get it out. Then we're going to try and keep stuff stacked on top of each other so that we get the most out of our Flame Strikes from the Fire Mage, and that I can Searing Nightmare as much as possible. But so we end up just kiting this stuff back up the hill because of Sanguine. And then I'm going to put Vampiric Touch on stuff, although it's a little late now to be doing that. And then we finish that pack. So that's one thing. That situation is I missed an entire use of my Power Infusion and my Void Eruption just because I wanted to make sure it was up for this pack. I should have used it, right? And that's kind of inexcusable, like I said before. So the things to be worried about in this pack, the Staghorn does this simulate resistance and stimulate growth or something. So he has a heal and he has a shield. The shield needs to be kicked before the cast goes off, but the heal needs to be kicked immediately. So the heal is a channel. The simulate resistance that just went off, our rogue kicked it. You can kick that at 0.1 seconds or whatever and be fine. But the other one, the regeneration or whatever it's called, that one needs to be kicked immediately because even one tick is going to heal the mobs a certain amount. So you want to avoid that. Our DH goes and encaps the Reavers again because the Reavers are pretty deadly and they're running around all the time and they're not in our route, so we don't want to have them. I pop my Void Eruption here to try and help with Prideful damage. I have my Power Infusion coming up here in a couple seconds. I should probably use it on the Rogue, I'm guessing. Yeah, so I do use it on the Rogue because our Fire Mage's Combust is down. And then, I'm going to pop Vampiric Embrace here soon. Yep, right there to try and help with the healing. And then we're just, focusing this guy down. And then we're about to go into another pull with some larvae that aren't important. And then it should have a Staghorn, I think. Oh no, there isn't a Staghorn in this next pull. So we end up doing a double pull here too. I don't think there's a single Staghorn in this entire thing. Yeah, so this is a good time to do a double pull because there's nothing really deadly about these guys. The acid globules that they shoot out need to be dodged, which is important. And the volatile, what's it called? Volatile acid or something that puts a circle on people. That is pretty deadly. Yeah, volatile acid, like this one that just goes on me. You just need to make sure no one's standing in it. It cleaves people, so those can be pretty deadly, but there's not a ton to worry about in these packs right here, these two packs that we pull together. So this is a pretty good time to do a double pull. So, and we just had Prideful, so we have Prideful going into this, which means so Prideful plus these guys aren't super deadly means that this is a really good double pull to do. So I'm trying to Searing Nightmare stuff when it's stacked up, but because of all the kiting that has to happen, I don't get a ton of value out of it. And then I should have Vampiric Touched more things more quickly. But we end up, killing these guys decently. That guy gets a lot of Sanguine, which is not good. And then this is gonna be, I think, our last pull before the boss. We're gonna have this and then Prideful. I should Void Eruption here and use my Power Infusion because we have some time. We're gonna be doing this pack, and then we're gonna be doing Prideful, and then we're gonna be doing the boss. So I may have missed another Void Eruption here because I should have used it immediately, but the fact that I'm not using it worries me. Because I'm just gonna miss out on another Void Eruption cast. So that's two cooldown windows throughout the course of this key that I've spotted, at least, that I could have had that I end up not having. So instead of doing 8k DPS here, I could have been doing 10k, 11k, something more that would make this key go quicker and easier, right? So our healer gets cleaved there by what's it called? By Quaking. Oh, and that's not even Prideful. Yeah, so that's really disappointing to see. So I definitely should have used both cooldowns there. I could probably still use both cooldowns on this next pack and have them up for the boss. So hopefully I do, but I've been sitting on my Power Infusion and my Void Eruption for way too long at this point. So That's something that I'm trying to work on. I've been playing Shadow Priest since Legion. Really, I took a break after Tomb of Sargeras, and then I came back like at the end of BOD and BFA. So I'm really used to not having cooldowns, right? So just being like trying to get the most out of my void forms, like in BFA and Legion, and not really worrying about like planning these 2 minute cooldowns to line up with certain stuff. So I'm really bad at that right now, and that's something that I'm trying to work on. Because back in the day, right, I would just cast Vampiric Touch on everything, go into Void Form, try to make it last as long as possible, and that was it. That was like how to play Shadow Priest, right? Was you would just do that, and then try and get the most out of your Void Form or whatever, and that would be it. But these days, Shadow Priest has the majority of your damage comes from your cooldown windows, so it's really important that you get as many cooldown windows as you can, right? So that you can do the most damage that you can, right? But like I was saying, I'm pretty bad at scheduling my cooldown windows, and it's a little harder because we have our 1.5 minute cooldown in Void Eruption, but we also have a 2 minute cooldown in Power Infusion, so they don't line up every single time. So if you use them both on cooldown every single time, it's gonna take so the first one they'll line up, but then they won't line up on the next one, and they won't line up on the next one, and then they will line up on the third one. So it's like kind of hard to plan around, and it's something that I need to work on, and that's probably for most people the biggest difference between being able to time a 19 and being able to time a 15, right? Is just the use of your cooldowns. Luckily for me, our Fire Mage really just absolutely blasts in like every single key. He's just an absolute monster, and he is good at lining up his combusts and everything. So for a majority, like in this key, he's doing 8.6k overall DPS, almost 9k overall DPS, which is like nuts, and I'm only doing barely 5.8k. He's been carrying a lot of the weight in this key in particular, and in many other keys. I mean, that's just the truth of it. He's been pretty much hard carrying the damage, and some of that comes with being a Fire Mage, but not all of it. I mean, there's like if I had not missed those 2 cooldown windows, I'd be doing closer to maybe 6.5k DPS overall or something like that, right? And over the course of a key, that's a huge deal. So that's something that I'm trying to work on, and one thing that, I mean, will make or break many, many keys in the future, and might be the difference between us being able to time a 20 and not being able to time a 20, or being able to time, higher keys in the future, is optimizing our cooldown usage. That's like the biggest thing about Mythic Plus, is just knowing who's using their cooldowns when, and getting the most out of them. So that's going to be the end of the key. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something. I have all the Twitch channels of everybody in this key, except for the Rogue. He doesn't have a Twitch channel. But everybody else in this key, I have their Twitch channel in the description. So go give them follows, check them out. Our Mage streams all the time. He streams all of our Mythic Plus keys, so go check him out. But outside of that, yeah, let me know if there's anything else that you wanted to see. Maybe I could go in more depth about stuff. Aside from that, thanks for watching. Peace.